Hey everyone, welcome to Professor Long's Lectures in Anatomy and Physiology. I'm Professor Bob Long. As you know, these videos are intended for use for students who are enrolled in my Human Anatomy and Physiology class at Del Mar College. If anyone else out in YouTube land finds them helpful, by all means use them. Please hit like and subscribe. That helps me out. It also helps you. The likes make sure that my videos stay near the top of the list so that students find them more easily. The subscribe helps you get new videos when I upload them or if I change things. And I'm gonna work on making these more professional. Right now, they're done in one take. It's me, my cell phone, and whatever materials I have in front of me. I'm gonna try to do this in a more professional manner, but I'm in a pinch trying to get this done during a difficult time. Now, what we have been going over in the past few videos is the wireman. And I actually haven't even started a video of wireman just yet. What I've been doing is drawing the vessels out for everybody so that you get the roadmap in your brain, and then it's easier to find all the branches as you go through wireman. I think the best way to learn this is not to just sit here and stare at that bowl of spaghetti that we call wireman, but to learn to draw out the arteries that go to the head, the arteries that go to the arm, the arteries that go to the abdomen, and then the arteries that go to the legs. And then you start with the veins. You do the veins from the brain to the heart, from the hand to the heart, and the abdomen, and then the legs. So I've already done a series of videos on the arteries. Today's video is over the veins, and we're gonna do the veins that drain blood from the head and the scalp, and from the arm all the way back to the heart. Now remember, arteries are red, veins are blue because of the oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go back to the very first video in this series of drawings, my videos on the drawings of the vascular system. Arteries are red, veins are blue, except for the pulmonaries, they're reversed. We've gone over this in several videos before, so watch those videos and they'll help you understand what I'm talking about. Now, I'm going to draw the veins as they drain blood from the brain and scalp back to the heart and from the hand back to the heart. I'm going to do a whole list of these together. And what you're going to see is I'm going to draw the veins on one part of the board and I'm going to write my list on the other part so that you can see the key with these. When it comes to this, we're going to do fewer veins to the head, so most of it is going to be the arms. When it comes to our extremities, the arms and the legs, we have what's called dual venous drainage, which means we have an extra set of veins draining the limbs. When we do that, we have some that are more anterior and some that are more posterior. I'm going to draw the veins that are more anterior in blue. I'm going to draw the veins that are more posterior in purple, so that you can see them on the board and get some sense of three-dimensional analysis. But I have a flat surface, and it's really hard learning these from a flat surface or from pictures, which is why we really like for you guys to have a wireman when we're in face-to-face scenarios. And you guys can really see the three-dimensional analysis and the physical relationship of the arteries and veins to each other, and the landmarks which help us identify which one is which. We don't get to do that in a flat structure, so we're going to do the best we can with what we have. And then if you want to, you can always look up some of these 3D programs that are online that show a dissected human and you can get the real relationship, okay? Or you can look up Grey's Anatomy. It's not just a TV show, which I've never seen an episode of. Can't watch those medical videos because I worked in surgery and they're so phony and fake, those medical shows. They get so much wrong, it drives me nuts. But nonetheless, there is a book called Grey's Anatomy it's one of the oldest and the most referenced anatomical textbooks in the world, and it's also on Wikipedia, and you can get some three-dimensional relationships of some of the vessels. The drawings are just absolutely beautiful. Dr. Gray hand drew these out back in the early 1900s, and it's a beautiful book if you ever get your hands on it. Nonetheless, let's get started on the veins, okay? So, arteries are red, veins are blue, except for the pulmonaries. So I'm going to use blue for the arteries, but I'm always going to draw the heart in red. So I'm going to draw the heart kind of medium high because I do have to have some veins going up to the head, and I have to have some coming out to the arm. And then we'll do our key or our list over here, okay? So here's the heart. We're going to have a large vessel coming out of the bottom of the right side of the heart, and a large vessel, the two largest veins of the human body, coming up superior and inferior. I'm going to label this one number 1. I'm going to label this one number 2, okay? And on our list, number 1 is going to be called the inferior vena cava. Or some people like to say inferior vena cava because they go to Harvard or they put flowers in their vase. But inferior vena cava, inferior vena cava, same difference, different pronunciation. Okay, so the second vessel is going to be called the superior vena cava. And these two vessels are what are carrying all the blood from above the heart and from below the heart back to the heart. They're draining all of our organs. One last thing I want to make you aware of. When we trace a drop of blood from the heart to a distant organ, we actually named the arteries in the correct order that they would travel through, like the aorta, the subclavian artery, axillary, brachial, radial, and all that. We did them in order. For the veins, I actually do them backwards. If we started, the drop of blood would start in the hand and then go through these veins in this order back to the heart. But if you try to get started in the periphery, sometimes you get lost. It's always easy to find the heart and work backwards. And so I do the veins in reverse order, okay? This would be the last one in order if blood was coming back to the heart from here, okay? Nonetheless, now the superior vena cava is very short. It's not very long at all, and it splits into two vessels. One of the other things that is confusing sometimes is where sometimes we have one artery, we actually have two veins, and this is a good example. There's only one brachiocephalic artery that goes from the aortic arch, comes over to the right a little bit, and then it splits into the right common carotid and right subclavian. But there's only one brachiocephalic artery. We have two brachiocephalic veins, and so the superior vena cava is where the junction of the two brachiocephalic veins meet right here. I'm only going to draw the ones going off to the right, but this one would be the left one. That vessel right there would be called the right brachiocephalic vein. And I'm going to abbreviate V for vein. And if I don't put right or left, there's only one. If I put right or left, that means there's another one on the opposite side. Now, off of the right brachiocephalic and the left brachiocephalic vein, there would be two major branches going up to our brain this way, okay? These two branches, I'm going to label number 4, and I'm going to label this one actually number 6, because there's another one I'm going to put in between here, okay? Number 4 is going to be the right internal jugular vein, and the one that I labeled number 6 is going to be the right external jugular vein. And if we were on this side, the ones that would come off would be internal and then external over here. I'm not going to draw them, although they are on the model. The internal is always medial, the external is always lateral, okay? Internals are inside, externals are outside. The internal jugulars are draining the inside of the skull back to the heart. The external jugulars are draining the outside of the skull back to the heart, okay? Now, there's a small vessel that comes off a little bit posterior here, and it comes off lower, and it runs along the back side of this, and as it's running along, it appears between these other two. So I'm going to kind of draw it running along here in purple, and then it's going to come up between these two. And I'm actually going to label it number 5, but it really would come off here, run on the backside, and then come out. Okay, that's where it appears on our model. And that one is called the right vertebral vein. Okay, just like we had the vertebral arteries running in the cervical vertebrae through the transverse foramen, the vertebral veins run there. We don't see it over here because some reasons I'm not going to explain right now. So we're following the right side. So look, inferior vena cava below the heart, superior vena cava above the heart, and then the superior vena cava is where the two brachiocephalics meet, the right and left brachiocephalic. I have the right internal jugular, the vertebral comes off in the middle, and then I have the right external jugular. That is not where the vertebral joins the joins the brachiocephalic. It's just where it kind of appears because of the way that it runs behind there. Now, after the external jugular vein comes off, the brachiocephalic ends and changes names. It's going to run underneath the right clavicle, and so from here on out, it starts to arch down a little bit. That would be your, oops, I put 4. Would be the right subclavian vein. Just like the arteries sometimes change names after a landmark, the veins do also. So the subclavian vein drains into the brachiocephalic, which drains into the superior vena cava, and then these 3 veins eventually drain into the brachiocephalic as well. Internal, jugular, vertebral, external. Now this is where it gets tricky because we're going to have that dual venous drainage thing, and we're going to have some veins run anteriorly. I'm going to keep those in blue. The ones that run posterior are going to be in purple. Of course, I have a flat board, so that's how I have to do it. So there's going to be a large vessel that comes off the brachiocephalic and subclavian, and right here, it's going to run all the way down, and it's going to dive a little bit medially, and it's going to have a branch that goes kind of straight down here. This is where our subclavian is. This vessel, all the way here, is going to be called the right cephalic vein. And it actually looks like it runs all the way straight down here also, but this one is actually called the accessory cephalic, and then the cephalic runs a little bit here, okay? The accessory cephalic, it's not on our list, we're not naming it, but that's what it would be, okay? Now, the cephalic vein is actually that large vein when someone has big muscles, unlike mine. There's a large vein that runs right here, and it runs right down this way, and then it dives in a little. That's your cephalic vein. Once the cephalic vein meets here, this branch is a different name than the subclavian. And because we're going to start to go sort of deep and posterior, I'm going to change the color to purple. Hopefully that comes out on your video screen. This vessel here is not very long, and it runs through your armpit, and that would be called the right axillary vein. Okay, so this is your right axillary vein here. The axillary vein is bookended by the cephalic and another vessel that comes off and runs on the front of your arm, but runs medially where the ulna would be, okay? But they're anterior and they don't get that name. This one, all the way down, is called the Basilic Vein. This is your right Basilic Vein. And I underline that because we had a basilar artery in the brain. But this is the Basilic Vein, which is found in the arm. If you get that wrong, and you told someone, oh, we have an MRI of the basilar vein, they're going, what? Why are we looking at the arm then if it was in the skull? So basilic is in your arm. That's this one that runs right inside here, okay? So, finally, well, I'll do this in a moment. Now, where the axillary vein comes down and the basilic vein joins it, it runs posterior straight down here, but this is a different name. This one that I've labeled number 11 is going to be actually called the right brachial vein. And now it's going to be just like the arm, just like the arteries, I should say. For the arteries, we had subclavian, axillary, brachial, radial, and ulnar. And the veins have the exact same thing. Subclavian, axillary, brachial, and then we're going to have 2 branches called the radial and ulnar. But again, they're going to run posteriorly, so I'm going to do them in a different color. And then the only difference is we add the cephalic and the basilic to the front of the arm. Okay? Now, the brachial vein comes down a certain distance and it's going to split, and it's going to run behind all of this way. Okay? And these eventually make loops down here in your hand and have a bunch of veins coming off. Now you have to remember, in correct anatomical position, your thumb is always lateral, your pinky is always medial. Thumb are right on your radius, radial, PU, pinky ulna. Okay? So this one on this side that's in purple, oops, I used the wrong marker. This one that's in purple that's going to run behind all of this, number 12, is going to be your right radial vein. And this one running right here is going to be the right ulnar vein. Those are the ones that are in purple. The ones in blue would be the cephalic and accessory cephalic and the basilic. But these two in purple, 12 and 13, are going to be your radial and ulnar vein. And then finally, there's one little tiny branch that comes over here and goes from medial to lateral and joins across here. It's usually where they try to drain some blood, either at the cephalic, or they try to get this one, which comes across and joins it, okay? And this short branch that comes across here, and it's hard to number this at some point with all of this, but this short branch that comes from the basilic and joins the cephalic, that one is called the right median cubital vein. And I know I erased my number 13. My number 13 is going to be the one in purple out here. But this little one that comes over, it's going to be your right median cubital vein right across here, okay? So, this gets a little confusing, I know, but you just got to work it until you can't stand it, okay? So look, superior vena cava, brachiocephalic, we have the internal jugular, the vertebral, and external jugular. I have the subclavian vein. Now the subclavian vein ends where the cephalic vein joins. Then what's left here is the axillary vein. This would be the basilic vein running all the way down. And then this is axillary, actually is meeting up with the brachial vein, the radial vein, and the ulnar vein on the posterior side. And then the basilic and the cephalic are joined by this little branch coming across right here, which is called the median cubital vein. I'm going to try to show you this in another video on Wireman. I have a couple of more videos to do of the veins, so hopefully you're watching all of these, trying to make sense of them. It's a lot of information, I know, but there's tons more of human anatomy that we could be covering. We're trying to filter out those most important structures to lay the foundation. You can add more detail later. If your instructor covers more detail, then you got to learn it. But this is the foundational level of what you need to know for the major vessels of the arm, or at least the major veins of the arm and the veins that drain the brain. Okay? I hope that you had as much fun as I did learning this. I hope you learn it as well as you possibly can through repetition and drawing it. And I hope you do well on your exams. Again, if this is helpful, please hit like and subscribe. And I'll see you guys on the flip side in the next video. Thanks for watching.